Hello, folks in the square dance world, square dance callers, round dance cuers, and anybody else in between. My name is Paul Cody, and I am here with Steve and Chauvin, and we are from Hilton Audio Products. Who are we at Hilton? Well, I am the face of Hilton, which is why things are a little bit screwy right now. I understand that. Basically, I need you all to know that this is the way I normally look. The camera adds 10 pounds. Over here to my left is Stephen Chauvin. Stephen Chauvin is the brains of the unit here. He's the guy who makes things actually happen. I come up with an idea and I say, Steve, make it so, number one. And well, he's pretty darn good at it. Hi, Steve.
Paul. Must be your side of the camera because my side of the camera subtracts 10 pounds.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, good deal. So, what have you been doing lately, Steve?
Working on that.
Working on that? Looks like a beast.
It is the beast.
The beast. Ladies and gentlemen, with Stephen's help here, I would like to introduce you to the new Hilton 446. It's the MA-446, and it's got a little bit of punch to it. So, Steve, why do we call it the 446?
Well, it actually has two completely independent 220 watt high efficiency output amplifiers. That's where we get the 4.4 from.
So 440.
And it has 6 individual microphone input channels. So that's where the 6 comes from.
So you got 2 separate amplifiers in there, and you got 6 separate individual microphone channels, each with their own tone control and their own volume control. That's a lot of channels there.
Yep. Well, it's the beast.
I'll tell you why I came up with this idea many years back. Actually, right around the time, but maybe right before I bought the company. I was at the national convention, and I remember being up there in the live music hall, and they had a bunch of callers all calling together at the live music hall. And we had to use splitters and everything else. It was just a crazy mess. So I asked myself, you know, what would I need to make this thing something that could handle all the callers in the live music hall, plus an MC, plus maybe a round dance cuer. And so I came up with, well, you get 4-part harmony, so that's 4 callers. You got 1 round dance cuer, and you have an MC, and that's the situation in the live music hall. So 6 channels it is. That's the way we went up with that. Tell us a little bit about how this thing works, because there's a lot to it, and it's going to take a little while to cover it. If you're familiar with the MA-220, the MA-220 was 200 watts?
220 watts.
220 watts, okay, and then it had 4 channels to it. It allowed for a single plug to be put in, an RCA plug to be put into the remote switch or the mute switch, and that allowed anybody who has a 300 cable to press the red button on the side, and that would mute the unit, so there would be no more music coming out. Music's still playing, but it's not coming out through the speakers. And then press it again, and it became the music was back on. It's a lot like a teaching situation, where if you're in the middle of doing something and you want to have an opportunity to pause the music, you're not pausing it, you're muting it. You mute the music, you say, excuse me, so-and-so, would you please switch places? And okay, you're all set now? All right, press the button again and go. So that's what the MA-220 did. We're going to take that several steps beyond that, and we're going to figure out what it was that we have new on this unit. I want to grab a single microphone cable. Again, remember the 10-pound thing. So here's my microphone cable. I have one of the last 767 microphones on it. I have my on-off switch. I have my volume control. By the way, my volume control is a little bit different than many people's. It's a skull. And it has the remote switch. The remote switch is going to be mute, unmute, mute, unmute. And that's the way the cable works, as designed. Okay, on the other end of the cable, there are 3 plugs. There's a 1/4-inch plug, which is the plug for the actual microphone itself. There is a 1/8-inch plug, which is the plug for the remote control of the music. And then there's an RCA jack or RCA plug, and that was what allows this red button to control the music. The power on the remote knob is about 20%. What we have in there is we have about 20% of the swing on the music that allows you to have, you know, hey, you hit that big old last line of the song, you really want to belt it out, and you crank that music up there. And even though every caller's class, they tell you, don't crank the music, don't crank the music. Listen, if you're going to put on a show, you crank the music once in a while. That's the way it works. All right, so that's the old MA-220. Let's ask Steve a few questions about this. So, Steve, if I have a mic with control like this skull, it used to be 20% swing, 20% up and down. What's it now?
30%.
30%. Okay, so just if you were working by yourself, you now have 30% control over the same range as you would have on the dial when it comes to spinning your finger. That's not what's important here. There's a whole bunch more, and I'm going to let Steve address this thing because he's the one that made the dream come true, and I'd like him to tell you a little bit about what's happening here.
So first off, when you first plug in the microphone cables, if you have just a slew of canary cables, but those are the speaker cables that do not have the microphone cable that do not have the remote or the mute switch on them, then everybody that's plugged in has control of the music. But it's set up so that whoever has the music, remote music turned up the most is the one that is in control, and everybody else has to make sure that their music is turned down until they want to be in control and they can turn their music up.
Let's take a step back here for a second. If you remember on the 220 or any of the previous Hiltons that have been out there, what people would ask for is they'd ask for a splitter, and they'd plug that splitter into that remote jack, into that remote volume jack, and they take that splitter, and you'd have control of your music going up and down 20%, unless of course the caller next to you has his music knob cranked, and then you have absolutely nothing. Okay, you sit there and you try and move the music, and you can't do a thing because Joe caller next to you has got his all the way up, and you're stuck with it. The other negative to that was when you put a splitter in there, or if we put an additional jack in for you there, the amount, that 20% power or that 20% variation cuts dramatically. How much does it cut when they start putting those additionals?
It cuts 50% for the first one. It cuts 60% or 66% for the second one, and then an additional 25% for the next one.
So basically what's happening there is by putting in a splitter, you take 20% remote and you split it down by 50%, so now you only have 10% remote, okay? Or if you add the third one, now you have 1/3, so it's taking 66% away, and now you're only working with 34% of the original 20% range you had. Add a fourth one there, you're down to 25%, and that brings you less than 10 degrees of changing the volume because of those splitters. It's just the way it works. There's not a way around that without getting into a whole rebuild, and we're not going to get into a whole rebuild of the 220. With this situation like Stephen has, each one of the individual channels has full control, 30%. All right? Now, that doesn't help you if there's still Joe caller next to you who's got his volume cranked all the way, right?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
He's going to be the one that's got the full control there, and you're just not going to be able to do anything about it. So, with the brains of the operation here, Mr. Stephen Chauvin, he has helped us to come up with a system that will allow us to not worry about Joe over there. And we're going to take care of ourselves. So tell me what this does now.
So now, if you're a single caller out there and you just have one mute switch attached, in other words, you just have one 300 cable attached, this system acts like the MA-220 in that when you hit the mute button, it mutes the sound. However, if you add 2 or more 300 cables with their mutes attached, then it changes its mode into what's called a master mode. So the person that hits the mute button now becomes the master controller of the remote sound. So that person uniquely has control of the sound. Nobody else has any control at all, period. And he has full range, 30% range. The next person down the line, if it's his turn to be a lead singer, in a quartet or whatever, if he pushes the mute button, he now becomes the master. So now he has full control. And there's an LED on the front of these that indicate that you have become master.
Or I'm the master.
No, I want to be master.
No, I'm master.
Okay, neither of us are master.
Who pays the bills here?
Okay, you're master.
All right. So, something else to think about here is, as he said, it's changing modes. If you're up there by yourself, doing your thing, teaching a class, whatever else, and for whatever reason you felt you wanted to have the beast here at your class, and you were just pressing the button, the remote button here. Okay, again, anytime you hear me reference a 300 cable, that means a cable with 3 plugs on it and 3 controls. So if I say 300 cable, that's what we're talking about. You press the button on here, and when you're by yourself, that mutes the music. That's it. It mutes the music, and you don't have to worry about who's turning the dial because it's only you. On the other hand, if you have 6 people up there, well, you sure don't want Joe Caller to be hitting that mute button while you're trying to do your part of the song. You don't want to have that. So we don't have a mute option when you have multiple callers up there. Automatically, the system is going to switch to, I have control of the remote volume. You have control of the remote volume. That's the way it goes all the way down the line for 6 different individual microphone channels.
Some of the older MA systems had 10 LED view meters in it. This system has a 20 LED view meter to give you a little more accuracy, and it's much brighter than the older view meters. Additionally, this MA now has the capability of having inputs from stereo input from a computer or a laptop or a tablet or whatever. You've got two 8-inch jack inputs. It has 2 input channels, so it also has the ability, out of one of those channels you can...
Oh, wait a minute, we got to build this up a little bit more here.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, if we're going to start talking about this is going to be a little bit of drama here. Okay, not only do you have your 2 8-inch channels for music, okay, so you could plug your two computers in that way. What else do we got here, Steve? And drum roll, please.
Okay, so on each of those input channels now you have the ability to have either the 1/8-inch jack or a USB input from your computer or device.
Excellent.
Or you have the ability to have an 1/8-inch jack or a Bluetooth device.
A Bluetooth device, did you say?
Bluetooth.
Bluetooth.
Yes.
And how does Bluetooth work with an MA?
It's all magic.
Magic. That's why he gets the big bucks here, folks.
It's all magic. So basically, you see this LED that is blinking right now. That's telling you that this system is set up for Bluetooth, but it's not connected. So once we connect something with Bluetooth...
My phone's recording this thing, so I can't connect my phone.
So I'll use my phone.
All right.
Did you turn your Bluetooth off on your device?
I hope so.
That's me too. Let's see if I can connect.
Oh yeah, it's flashing, so it must have got to be off.
Okay, let's see.
Flashing blue means there's no connection.
It says I'm connected. So now...
Well, how do you know you're connected to that?
Now that I'm connected, you see that the blue light is solid. That says I've got a Bluetooth connection.
Right, but how do you know that you're connected to that machine?
Okay, I knew you were going to ask that.
I'm going to ask that.
I need to go back to that now. Go back to Bluetooth. So, I don't know if you can see this.
It's good if you put it up there.
But each MA has its own ID. So this guy is telling me this is MA serial number 1234. Or it's MA-446 serial number 1234. So we're going to connect. Now it says connected for audio. This is an Android device. So done.
So that works with identification of MA-446-1234.
Now that we're connected with Bluetooth, the fidelity is really good. I was surprised how good the Bluetooth fidelity is. Okay.
So you got the Bluetooth and it's coming straight in there, wireless. So if you have your computer there and you want to connect your computer without using a wire, there's your Bluetooth channel for that. It's still going to be a maximum of 2 sources. Okay, it'll be either the 2 1/8" jacks, or it's going to be an alternative to one of the 1/8" jacks is going to be the USB. The alternative to the other 1/8" jack is the Bluetooth. So it's still going to be 2 music channels, and then you can do whatever you want to add additional sources by putting in splitters for that. That doesn't matter. It's just a matter of turning the volume knob. What else we got in this box?
So in this box now we have 2 what do you call these?
LEDs.
Fault LEDs on the front. On the older MAs, there was a faulty LED, but it was down inside. So if you're calling a dance and all of a sudden the music cuts out, you don't know why it cut out. So the fault LEDs basically give you an indication that there was one of 4 problems with the power amp. It's either overheated, it's one of the speakers has become either shorted or is too low of an impedance, so it's gone over current. You've had a power surge, so it's gone over voltage. What was the 4th one? Oh, one of the channels has started to break down, so you have a offset voltage, which you don't want to have happening. If you have a speaker attached, you don't want to have an offset voltage because it will degrade your speaker over time.
That's not good.
So these 2 LEDs, when you first turn the system on, those LEDs will come on. They're doing a system test, and then they'll shut off saying everything's okay. Yeah.
So everything's okay right now. We know that's one. Down here in the front, you have the RCA jacks, the voice out and the music out individually. In the past, we didn't have quite the amount of control or quite the way we wanted to control those RCA plugs with the controls right here. We didn't have it set up the way we wanted it to be, but that's what we were given as the previous design. With this new design, we're going to have more of a range there, and we can get more use of the actual controls. It'll make a difference when it comes to making your adjustments. So when you take your hearing assist system and you plug it in here to the into the front, you plug it into the voice out for the people who are listening via hearing assist. They would hear what you've got going on, and we were able to adjust it better than we have in the past, where we basically kind of had to have it all the way jacked up to the top. Now it's a situation where it's going to be more linear. Yeah. So if you're working with that hearing assist system, then they're able to hear that way much better. But wait, I forgot to bring my hearing assist system, or I don't have a hearing assist system, or the club doesn't have a hearing assist system. What do we do about that?
The MA-446 comes with its own hearing assist system.
Where?
It comes off of the back of the system. It's got 3 knobs that you can adjust the frequency for. And then if you have your hearing assist receivers, it operates in a range of 700 kilohertz, around there, whatever you adjust it for in that range.
What?
Yes, I'll get you a hearing assist system.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It'll be around 700 kilohertz range for you.
Thank you, son. Appreciate it.
If you have an AM radio or whatever you use for your hearing assist, if it can be adjusted into the 700 kilohertz range, you're good.
So it's not just one channel. It's going to be multiple channels that you're going to have a choice for. So if you had a festival set up and you had 4 of these set up in 4 different rooms, guess what? 4 different hearing assists, all on their own channel. Not going to interfere with one or the other at all. It's all inside the unit. You're going to have it. I mean, just think about this. First of all, we know this thing's going to be a pretty pricey puppy. We know that, okay? But when we talk about eliminating the need for a USB device, eliminating the need for a Bluetooth device, eliminating the need for a hearing assist system, it's all in this unit. And this unit is not that much bigger than the 220. It's about this much.
Actually, about that much.
Okay? So this is the 220 right here. Basically, these extra 2 channels are the width difference. And then it's a little bit taller, probably about 1 inch taller on the top. If you had to guess, Stephen, how much this thing weighs?
Probably close to 16 pounds.
What? 16 pounds?
I think so. I think the MA weighs 9, right?
No, the MA weighs 7.
7. Okay, well, this weighs 13 pounds.
Okay, 13 pounds. That's not horrible at all. We'll find out exactly what it weighs, and we'll put it on the spec sheet for you. But it is really a compact system with a bunch of stuff in it. Tell me what else do you have on the Beast here, Steve?
Okay, the last feature that I forgot to mention that's included in the Beast is this little section here that's called AGC, which stands for Automatic Gain Control.
What's that?
So automatic gain control basically is a system that cuers might use, or callers that are using a lavalier type setup where they don't have the ability to remotely control the music. In the case of cuers, they kind of operate a little bit backwards from the way callers operate, in that they want their music to be playing, but when they give their cues, they want the music to mute down so you can hear the cue clearly, and then the music to come back up. So what the AGC does is it detects as soon as you start talking, and it cuts the music back at whatever level you want it to cut back. So there's an adjustment that says at what level you can detect the voice. In other words, I may not want the music to cut back when I'm talking at this level, but I do want it to cut back when I'm talking at this level. And I definitely want it to cut back when I'm at this level. And you also have an adjustment that says how far the music is cut back. And it'll cut back up to 30%, just like the remote control on the microphone channels. Again, this is operating the exact opposite logic of what Square Dance callers typically want to have happen. Cuers want to do it differently.
So for a caller, the remote controls are for a flourish, they're for a moment of excitement or whatever else. You're going to use that dial, you're going to spin that dial to hype up the crowd kind of thing. For a cuer, you have your music at a consistent level, and that music is just going out the way that you hope for the dancers to enjoy that music. But when it comes time for your cue, they have to hear that apart, point, together, touch to semi. Is that the way you do it? Yeah, they have to do that. And when you say apart, point, together, touch to semi, that music that's going out at this volume is going to drop down this much, or however much in between you want it to be. While you do the cue, you stop talking and you let them dance those. What's a long round dance cue? A diamond something.
Yeah, diamond turn.
Diamond turn takes a while to do a diamond turn. You say diamond turn, and then all of a sudden the music comes back up and lets the dancers enjoy the music until the next time you have to say something else. So it's a next generation kind of unit here. Next generation. All right, so we want to talk about the power of this unit. We mentioned before that you had your MA-220, that was 220 watts of power. This unit is the 440, okay, or 446. We know that the 6 means it has 6 channels of microphones, and 440 is the amount of watts coming out of this thing, 440 watts. But how is that possible? What's happening in here that's different than the 220?
So inside here, actually, there's 2 amplifiers that are essentially the same amplifier that are inside the 220.
The power amp board.
The power amp portion of it. There's 2 of those. So now you have the capability of driving twice as many speakers as you had with the 220. And they're 2 completely separate, independent channels. So, I mean, you could potentially drive a set of yaks for the front of your festival, and some other type of speaker, you know, as long as they were consistent within that amplifier on the other side of the room.
All right. But before we get that far away here, back on the 220, people have asked how many speakers can you conceivably power using 220, and the answer to that is absolute most comfortably would be the 4 full yak stacks. And when I say 4 full yak stacks, I mean top and bottom connected by a parallel Y in the back of the top and bottom, coming through the speaker cable to the back of your amplifier, and then plugged into a Series Y connector, and then those Series Y connectors plugged into the 2 outputs in the back of your MA-220. So that gives you the opportunity to take 4 full yak stacks, top and bottom, and that's the biggest amount that you can safely handle on a 220 of speakers that you're actually powering. All right. By bringing this now to the 440 and having 2 separate power amps, now what's our situation?
We had exactly twice that.
Exactly twice that. Did you hear that, folks? Okay. You could carry 8 full yak stacks. You hear me? 8 full yak stacks. When's the last time you needed that in the hall? Been a while, from what I know. Even the top of the national conventions. What's really neat about it is for those people who have been saying from the beginning, well, I don't like using that Series Y connector. It makes my amplifier sound funny. First of all, it doesn't make it sound funny. What happens is when you put 2 speakers together with a Series Y, it means that you have to actually drive more power. So the neat thing about all Hilton amplifiers is they come with this thing right here. It's called a volume knob, okay? And you can turn that volume knob and increase the power. We don't give you a power switch that says, boom, volume on, boom, volume off. We give you a dial that you turn. So if you put 2 speakers or 2 full yak stacks together with a Series Y connector, that means you're driving more speakers. And in order to drive more speakers, you have to turn the knob, you have to turn the volume up. It's just the way it works, okay? There is no amplifier that I know of, and maybe you know of one, Stephen, there is no amplifier that is this lightweight that can handle as much power as we're putting out, okay? Even in the case of the 220. The 220 has a minimum of 4 ohms, we'll talk about that later, but in any situation where you're talking about anything less than 4 ohms, you're talking about an amplifier that probably weighs 50 or 60 pounds, right? Yeah. I mean, they're huge. These are the ones that you see come in the cases for the big bands and things like that. Those guys can go down to 2 ohms, but that's just very, very heavy, very, very pricey. Again, you know, ours is not the cheapest thing in the world either. If you take this unit here, you can have 8 full yak stacks, which is going to power any hall, anywhere, anytime. It's just more than it's overkill. Yes, it is. That's why I like it. The best part about this thing, though, is for those people that hate the Series Ys, you've got an out. You've got an option now. If you really don't want to use your Series Ys because you're still convinced that it's going to give you a different sound, well, we've got an option now. What's that option, Stephen?
You have 4 inputs on the back from 2 separate amplifiers. You can drive everything.
Okay, but even if you're only driving 2 full yaks, you put 1 full yak on one power amp, you put 1 full yak on the other power amp, you're not worried about dropping down to below 4 ohms because they're 2 separate power amps. And with 2 separate power amps, you can now run those 2 full yak stacks just exactly as if you were running 1 full yak stack. And it's just the same exact way that that power dial is going to work for the volume, correct?
Yep.
That's pretty big because I know there are people who have been complaining about that since day one on the 150s and the 220s. They've been saying, I don't want to use the Series Y, okay? In order to use 8 full yak stacks, you still have to use 2 Series Ys. 2 Series Ys? 4 Series Ys.
2, you need 1 for each input, or each output.
4 total. So yeah, you need 4 Series Ys to run 8 full yak stacks. You need 2 Series Ys to run 4 full yak stacks. And you need no Series Ys to run 2 full yak stacks. It's all built into the system. What else is going on with this thing?
On the back side, we can't see it from here, but now you have the option of running your powered speakers, use a 1/4 inch mono jack, just like normal, but we now have...
The RCA.
Huh?
The RCA.
No.
The powered speaker could
I mean,
go...
you're running your speakers that you're powering out of the amplifier. It uses the 1/4 inch jack.
Right.
So,
okay.
All right. So your non-powered speakers, I mean to say. Just like before. But now you also have the ability to either use an RCA jack or an XLR connector if you have a powered speaker you want to run off the back.
Did you hear that, folks? We have 4 1/4 inch mono jacks that you can plug your 4 speakers into, okay, and get that power going out using the power from the power amp inside the 446. Or if you want just a line level signal going out, any one of those 4 1/4 inch jacks is a combo jack with a XLR connector built around a 1/4 inch connector. And that XLR connector is going to plug in to your powered speakers, and it's going to go in XLR to XLR from your regular, the back of your amplifier to the back of any powered speaker. They're all XLRs at this point. There's a couple exceptions, but they're pretty much all XLRs. And so you get a line level signal there. You send out line level signal, you control the power on the back of your speakers, and at the same time, you've got this big, beautiful unit here at 440 watts. It's not doing anything. It's working as a mixer for you, and it's taking care of all the extra bells and whistles, but it's not powering anything. It's just sitting there and it's relaxing in its quiet mode while everything goes out to the powered speakers and they do all the work. It's nice to have that option as well. I like this toy. I want one. Oh wait, I have one. If you want one, we'll talk about that later. Let's go back to that 4 ohm thing, okay? It has been when I bought the company from Dick Henschel, he told me, Paul, the hardest conversation you're going to have every week once you've owned the company. And he says, you're going to have it over and over and over again, and nobody is going to believe you. Your speakers or combination of speakers have got to be above 4 ohms in order to run this amplifier or any other Hilton amplifier without damaging it. It just flat out cannot be less than 4 ohms. There's no exception. Now, we can get into the whole bells and whistles about how to figure out what 4 ohms is. The simplest way to figure out what it is I've got a color-proof ohm meter that I sell for 25 bucks, and that'll take care of that. You can test your speakers and you know what you have. You know exactly what the power is. There's another whole story that goes with that, but that's something you're going to want to get into with Scott Bennett, and then you can talk to Steven about it, about ohms this, ohms that, blah, 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 blah. Okay, there's a calculation that's simple to do, and then there's the real major understanding of it that electronic engineers have to do. Okay, we don't need to do that as square dance callers. I want this thing to be easier for us as square dance callers, so we don't do that. Bottom line is, if you go below 4 ohms on any of these units, it's gonna let the smoke out. Okay, until the 220. The 220 had a feature. People called it a malfunction, but it's an actual feature that was put into the system. And it's a safety feature to save you a very expensive repair. You blow a power amp card on an MA-220, it's gonna cost you about $350 to repair. Not cheap, okay? So on the 220, if the signal going out ever dropped below 4 ohms, for whatever reason, the MA-220 would very quickly take the power of the music and the voice and click it off and on, off and on, off and on. And that's telling you, hey, knock it off. You're running this too low for the ohms. And if you took the time at that moment and you looked in the side of your amplifier right over here, you'd see that little red light's flashing. And that little red light is saying, hey, you're going below ohms. Okay, we can't power this thing, it's too hot. Okay, so that's what it's flashing at. People saw the MA-220 cutting in and cutting out, and they said, oh, something's wrong with it. No, that's the way it's supposed to be. We did it that way to protect you from a costly repair. This unit here has that same feature. It's going to flick on, flick off, flick on, flick off.
It's going to show up in these lights.
Okay, but it's going to show up right here in the lights on the top, rather than the ones down there inside the unit. You have to kind of crank your neck over to see. Sorry about that. Remember the 10-pound thing? It's okay. So if you go below 4 ohms here, which there's really no conceivable way that you should do that unless you're running 8 full yak stacks. That's really the only way it would work. Of course, some speakers have problems, and never, Steve, we've talked about this before, never, ever, ever trust what it says on the label on the back of your speaker. Don't trust that. It may not be that number, okay? I can tell you that there were yak stacks that have gone through construction along the way, been repaired along the way, and those numbers were completely different than what we actually tested them out to be. We'll get into a whole discussion about that with Scott Bennett down the line. Now, Scott Bennett's the owner of Yak Stack now, so he'll help us out with that discussion, and he's also another very a brilliant man when it comes to electronics.
Well, also, I mean, a lot of callers have older equipment, older speakers, and unfortunately, the wiring inside a speaker that makes up the coil of the speaker, as it ages, begins to break down, and you end up with shorts within the coil. So it's not uncommon for an older speaker to start dropping ohms. So it may start out as an 8 ohm speaker, and it'll gradually drop down until it's either shorted or very low. Still works for the most part, but when you read the impedance of that speaker, it is far down from where it should be because the insulation off of the speaker windings has worn out over the years.
So an 8 ohm speaker, say it breaks down over the years, it drops down to say, let's just say for an example, 6 ohms. Okay, 6 ohms is still well above that 4 ohm minimum, so we're really not concerned about it. All right, but if you put 2 full yak stacks in the back of this unit on the same power amp, and both of them have degraded down to 6 ohm speakers, when you connect them in parallel, now what do you have for ohms, Steve?
3 ohms.
Is 3 ohms below 4 ohms, Steve?
Sure is.
It's below 4 ohms. And what's going to happen?
That light will come on and it'll say, you're overdriving me. It'll come back on in a half a second and say, you're overdriving me. And it'll keep doing that indefinitely.
Now, if you have one of the MA-150s from back in the day, before the 220 came out, and you put those same 2 sets of speakers onto the unit, and now it's driving at 3 ohms instead of the minimum 4 ohms, what happens, Steve?
That's when the smoke comes out.
Ooh, that's nice, Steve.
Very expensive to replace because you can't get those amplifiers anymore.
Yes, you can't. They don't exist anymore. That's why we came to a, what is it, Class D amplifier. We switched from Class C.
These are Class D.
So the amplifiers inside the MA-446 and MA-220 are Class D amplifiers. You can't get the Cs anymore. They don't exist. So that's a big problem. But bottom line is, with the 150 and every Hilton before that, there was no warning. There was nothing saying, knock it off. There was nothing saying, stop doing this, you're hurting me. All right? Now, with the 220 and the 446, we have a feature in there, not a problem in there, that's telling you this is wrong, stop doing it, or you're going to be very unhappy. That's really the way it works. What do you think that this unit could handle for a haul? If you were taking this unit and running it haul and only using non-powered speakers coming out of the back of this 446, what kind of haul do you think you could cover?
Well, you could probably handle the standard convention haul, which I don't know, what is that, 120 feet by 75, 100 feet?
I don't know. I have never seen more than 4 full yak stacks used at a convention hall at the National Convention. I've never seen more than 4. This can handle 8. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. So we could take that same hall and consider any of the halls. Well, you know, when you go into many of these stadiums where there's stadium seating arenas where they have basketball or hockey, those units you would set up on one end of the long end of the court. You'd set up on one end, and you'd have your 4 sets of yak stacks out there, and that would the sound would come through that way. So you could handle that size hall with 4 yak stacks. Where are you going to find a hall bigger than that to use 8? I mean, how rarely does that happen for us right now? Now, hey, if we have a whole resurgence in the activity, fantastic, great for all of us, okay? But right now, I just can't imagine a time that you would actually have to have 8 full yak stacks. Can't imagine it.
But it's there if you need it.
It is, okay? All right, so most nights you're not working with 6 callers. Most nights you're working with 1 or 2, okay? This can handle the 1 or 2. If all of a sudden, 2 more callers show up, bang, now you have 4. All of a sudden you have something else added in there. You're up to 6 channels here. You all have your own control of the music. You all have your own master. You all have your own opportunity to take control through that master switch. You want to plug in with your Bluetooth, you plug in with your Bluetooth. You want to plug in with the USB, you plug in with the USB. Somebody already asked me, well, if you plug a USB stick in there, how's it going to know what song to play? No, this is not a computer. You can't read a USB stick off of it. What you can do is you can go from the USB in your computer to the USB in the front of this amplifier, and you can run your sound signal that way. A lot of people like the USB sound better than the 8-inch jack sound. Your preference, okay? So you have the USB there, you have the Bluetooth there. Again, you got a hearing assist system back, adjustable for anybody who wants to make an adjustment on it to different channels in there. And there's a whole spectrum of channels available, and that'll be more that we'll cover later. But this baby does it all, okay? I am so proud of this baby. We've been going back and forth trying to figure out what we wanted to call it for a specific name. Somebody said it on Facebook, and I like it. They called it the Beast, and I cannot think of a better way to think of this thing. It is a beast, and it will take care of any of your situations. Yeah, Hey, there may be something down the line that we can add to it, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a long while to figure something else out. The MA-446, dreamed of by me, created by he. We got a pretty good thing going here, folks. Okay, I mean, Hilton is well, we're not doing great during the coronavirus, I'll tell you that. We could really use a lot more support during the coronavirus. We could, I mean, if you could buy a microphone cable from us, that'd be so helpful. Buy any small purchases would be helpful. You want to make a big purchase, if you're in a good financial situation, we take that too. But the idea is once we get through this coronavirus, we want to start really focusing on this unit and making it available for people to try out. We'll have a certain amount of testing that we do with our hand-chosen, pre-picked guinea pigs that will work on the unit for us and try and make it work.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
To a point where they can't break it, that's when we'll make it available. If we're looking at dates, my happy place would be is if we can get it out in the fall. Okay, and I think that you and I have talked about it, and that's when we think it's conceivably ready to go. Mm-hmm. I would say far end, I would say the first of 2021, the first month of 2021. But right now the goal is to have it ready for the fall. If we can have it ready for your new dance classes starting in September, and we can all kick through this COVID thing, and we can move on and start living our lives kind of semi-normal again, depending on who you are. If we can have this ready in the fall for you, that's the goal. We're going to take deposits on it. It won't be small. It won't be a small deposit. It'll be a big deposit. But for those of you who have the cashola, this is the. I mean, hey, you get the Lamborghini here. This is the Lamborghini of square dance amplifiers for darn sure. I am so happy that you were able to make my dream come true here, and that's really what it is. It is my dream come true to have a unit like this that we can put our names on. You know, we didn't just buy Hilton and continue to just sell what they had. We've taken it and we've made this our own. And people think that it's mine, and people will say, "Oh, Paul, you're great. Oh, Paul, you're fantastic. Oh, Paul, you're this because of this amplifier." And a lot of people have been that way on Facebook. But bottom line, without Stephen Chauvin, there is never an opportunity that we're going to see this unit. It's all you, man. I love you, man. A lot of stuff to take in. And I know that this video has gone long and we've got a bunch of errors that we've made along the way, and we'll have to fix that later. But we'll also have a very short presentation that will be just a few slides and things like that. And when we put it all together, I hope that you will have this unit and you will see this unit at the major festivals that come up and the major weekends that are coming up in the coming year. We want to have this unit out there. I've had a lot of people talk about it, how bad they want one. We'll see if that actually is true. We'll go from there. But it's beautiful. Thank you, Stephen. We appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us, and stay safe and stay healthy out there. Peace and love. Thank you. Bye-bye, friends. Hi there. How you doing?
I was doing okay. All right.
I'm gonna laugh our way through this. This is fun.
All right. So, can you see
welcome to our new beast here. The Beast.
I like that.
Hilton Beast.
Well, 500. Don't be telling people that.
This is the beastiest beast
I mean, it
of all
was bigger, fatter, and uglier.